Hello, Tape Traders, and welcome to another edition of the Tape Traders Guide to 90s Pro Wrestling. I am your host, JD Sloan, owner-operator Wrestletopia and WrestletopiaTV, and today we're going to do a review show. Haven't done a review show in a while, mostly because I suck at them. But I've got my good brother, Hookah Matt. He's going to be alongside with me, and we're going to do a review on ECW November to Remember 1997. So before I get Hookah Matt on the line and we do the review, a couple of quick notes. If you are in the Rome, Georgia area, September 22nd, Wrestletopia will be on hand for Superstars of Wrestling Fest. I will have Duke the Dumpster Drosy and WCW's Daphne as my special guest at the Wrestletopia table, so make sure you head your way down, say hi to me, get an autograph from Duke the Dumpster, or maybe bring your trash can lid and have him sign that. And then, of course, WrestleCade. I will be at WrestleCade with Daphne and Impact Wrestling star Kiera Hogan. And then also, August 30th, if you are in the Nashville, Tennessee area, or you're able to make it to Nashville, Tennessee, Francisco Chiazzo's amazing documentary Journeyman will be live for the first time ever. World premiere. We're going to have a red carpet. The stars are going to be out walking the red carpet. Chase Stevens, Andy Douglas, The Naturals, Impact Wrestling's Rebel, Tracy Smothers, Jerry Lynn, promoters. The promoter of Overdrive Pro Wrestling will be there. The promoter of New South Championship Wrestling will be there. The promoter of NWA Saw will be there. We have wrestling stars and Crazy Steve from Impact Wrestling will be there. So many people are coming. Josephus from the NWA are all going to be there walking the red carpet. And red carpet experience is only $20. That comes with your seat for the movie in an amazing movie theater, Full Moon Cineplex, which is such an awesome place. This place is a movie theater, but they also have a tattoo studio inside, and they also do a yearly haunted house. It's really an amazing place. But the $20 is your ticket. It allows you to walk the red carpet with the stars, and for 30 minutes you get to hang out and rub elbows with the wrestlers, including Francisco and his wife Stormy, and director Paul Stewart of Journeyman. And then after the movie's over, we're all going to head out to the bar across the street, and we're going to have a special Q&A VIP session. Food, drinks, they're on me for the night. This is a special thing, and again, that's only $20 for a VIP package. And if you just want to come watch the movie, it's only $8, so I try to make sure this was priced reasonably for everyone and everything. We just really want people to see this. And if you are a promoter out there and you're listening, if you are running, if you know someone that is a promoter, if you know of a really cool wrestling convention coming up or a Comic-Con coming up, and you think that a documentary like Journeyman would be perfect for this situation, if there's a wrestling company that you go to, let's say there's an indie show that you go to every week or whatever, and they really need something special for their VIP package, or you just think that it'd be cool to be able to watch an awesome documentary about a true life journeyman, someone who's still doing the drives and the grind. There's all kinds of things we can do. We want to bring this all around the country. I don't think a DVD release is going to be coming out anytime soon. We are holding back on that for a very specific reason, and that reason is we want to do live events with the movie. So if you know of a wrestling promoter, if you know of a Comic-Con, if you know of a wrestling convention, whatever, if you know of maybe in your town you have a really cool movie theater that this would just be perfect in, hit me up. Contact me. You can find me, like I said, Google Wrestletopia, and all of my social media will come up, from Twitter to Facebook to Instagram. Whatever you got, I got too. Contact me. Give me the information. I will make this happen one way or another. This is truly an awesome, awesome movie, and everyone needs to see it. So, without further ado, let's get Hookah Matt on the line, and let's jump into this extreme review. All right, Matthew, thank you so much for coming back on tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to come back and talk about some extreme wrestling.
Well, cool. So before we jump into ECW, what's been going on, man? let's talk about the last couple of weeks since the last time you were on. A good portion of professional wrestlers have passed away over the last two weeks.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. It seems like sadly there's kind of every day somebody new is being talked about in the news for a terrible passing and stuff. It's been kind of crazy.
Did you get to see very much of Nikolai Volkov?
Just like the classic stuff. I was never somebody that like went out and like searched for it, but like I knew of all of his big feuds and big matches that he had. Obviously, WWE's done a good job of kind of always keeping him in the conversation a little bit and talking about him. So like the name's always been very relevant to me whenever I think about wrestling. Right.
Yeah. What about Brian Christopher?
Yes, of course. Attitude Era. Who can forget Too Sexy? I didn't like watch any of his stuff after he departed from WWF or anything like that, but during the time of the Attitude Era, he was definitely somebody that I loved to watch, and his whole thing with Grandmaster Sexy and with Rikishi and just the whole party gimmick that they had and stuff was always a blast to watch.
Yeah. I have spent many of times in locker rooms with Brian, and the day actually that he went to jail, this last time, I actually produced a show in Knoxville that he was supposed to headline, and
really,
yeah, I got a call at 2 a.m. and from the promoter who said, "Hey man, Brian just got arrested and for drunk driving and evading arrest," and he's like, "Do you know anyone off the top of your head to replace him?" Because Brian was crazy. So it wasn't like it definitely wasn't foreshadowing what happened, and so I just he was a nut. That's for sure. What about Jim Neidhart? Were you a fan of Jim Neidhart?
Yes. Jim Neidhart is one of those guys that, like, I don't know if he's thought about as much as, like, he kind of should be, but, like, he's that name that the moment you hear it, you instantly remember all the great moments and matches, and, like, his passing out of everybody, just personally from, like, growing up with, like, watching so much WWF and stuff like that, like, instantly, like, I wanted to sit down and watch some Hart Foundation matches and just see all the stuff that he did. Even his stuff with, like, Owen Hart and everything was great. I mean, I wish he would have got a stronger singles push at some point in his career, that he never, that never came to fruition and stuff. But like, the Anvil is one of those guys that is the reason why I love watching professional wrestling. And as a guy that like never loved like the big dudes or anything, obviously he wasn't like a gigantic guy or anything like that.
Sure,
but like
sure.
He was still a bigger dude in that era and stuff like that. So he was. I mean, Natalie is doing a great job, and she's. I think one of the big reasons why I love watching Natalie Neidhart so much is like that fondness that I had for watching her father perform too. And I don't know, like, I just have the utmost respect for, obviously the entire Hart family in general, but like Neidhart as well. Like, he's just absolutely phenomenal. So his passing was the toughest for me personally.
Yeah. I'm a big Bret Hart mark, and I grew up with the Hart Foundation. That's definitely a big part of my growing up, and so he definitely out of nowhere. His passing was really just kind of out of nowhere and a surprise, and not that Brian Christopher's wasn't also, but especially just Neidhart. I don't know. He wasn't that old. It just was not something to be expected.
Yeah, that's the scary thing about professional wrestling. It is. Like the lifespan on some of these guys is just not what it should be, especially as it seems to be like the the new generation, the Attitude Era, like the younger guys, like what's his name? The older guy.
Nikolai.
I've terribly. Yeah, he was an older guy, obviously,
right.
But like you look at Brian Christopher and you just think like, man, so much more life, and then Neidhart, you think like, man, so much more that he could have given to Natalie and to the industry and stuff, and he was never one of those veterans that got used in the live shows or anything like that. Like, I don't remember the last time that he was on any sort of WWE promotion of any kind. I mean, he was in a video game a couple years back and stuff, but that was about it.
Well, he was on Total Divas.
through Natalie and stuff.
Yeah, he was on that for the last a couple of years or whatever. But I know that he stayed pretty active in the independent scene and the signing, doing the WrestleCades and the WrestleCons and stuff like that, all the way up until I think a couple of years ago. From what I've been reading over the last couple of weeks or last couple of days, I guess, I guess he was kind of in the early stages of dementia and so I think that his schedule kind of cut back. I don't think he was very. When I say that, I mean early stage. I haven't read anything to where it was like he was, he was stuck in his house or anything like that. I did read that, so maybe his schedule has been cut back over the last couple of years. Another guy that passed away was Brickhouse Brown. Do you know that name at all?
I don't. That's a name that was not familiar to me in any way.
So Brickhouse Brown is from the Mid-South Territory, Texas, and then here in Memphis. And Brickhouse is actually the very first wrestling trainer I ever had. And the first person to ever teach me to lock up. First person to ever teach me to run the ropes. Brickhouse, I went to Brickhouse School in Madison, Tennessee when I was 16 years old. And
wow.
Yeah, I was trained by Brickhouse and Chris Michaels. And it was crazy because I don't know if you online on Facebook or anything, if you read any of the things that kind of how Brickhouse passed away, because he'd been battling cancer for the last 2 or 3 years. I know he had a GoFundMe and he lost a lot of weight. Brickhouse is one of those guys, dude, that even in his older years, he never looked different, if this makes sense. His physical attributes never really changed. His arms were always very muscular, and he just the name Brickhouse. He was a pretty jacked guy, not real tall or anything like that. Probably a little bit shorter than me, but just a jacked dude. And over the last year, man, he lost a ton of weight. I saw pictures of him at the Cauliflower Alley Club of this past one. And I mean, he was, battling cancer. So it is what it is. But he actually passed away a week before he died. This is going to sound weird, but definitely check it out online. You need to read this story. So he passes away in the hospital, and his mother wasn't ready to let them cart him away. So she's sitting next to him in the hospital after they had already declared him as dead. And just sitting there with her head rested on I guess on the chair or something, and all of a sudden he wakes up and says, "Mama, I'm hungry."
Gosh.
Yes, the hospital declared him dead, and he gets up and he's alive for another week and another 8 days.
Oh my goodness, you're gonna make me cry on this podcast. My goodness, that's such an emotional story. My God,
isn't that crazy? So
that is.
So I mean, he kicked out, and so obviously this time was his time. It was his time to go. But that's a great story for that is one of those stories to put in a wrestling book of crazy things that happen to pro wrestlers.
Yeah, that's the ultimate fake finish right there. Wow.
Yeah. Big time swerve. So now that we got all that out of the way, we got all the bad things. Have you watched any current wrestling?
Just catching up for the SummerSlam and NXT TakeOver event. I've been watching the highlights through YouTube and stuff like that. Noticed that Dean Ambrose is back and Renee Young has made her commentary debut and all that kind of stuff. But nothing has really stuck out to me. I'm just kind of waiting for the pay-per-view to kind of start more than anything.
So I on Monday I tuned into Raw for a little while, and I really liked Renee. Not only did I like her commentary, and we talked about this online. I don't think I watched enough of Raw to really grasp her commentating. I would say. I more or less, I just like seeing her there. She was a fresh presence.
Yes.
And I'll be real honest, I can't stand Jonathan Coachman right now. I think
talk about the ultimate Band-Aid. They're really trying to figure out a way to keep him irrelevant in the fact that they need these 3-man commentary teams and everything. but he just sounds so old and of a past time. And then also he never truly sounds like a fan of wrestling. Like I mean, coming from maybe that ESPN, thing that he's been doing for such a long time, maybe that's why, but like he doesn't sound like an actual fan of it. He just sounds like he's doing a job.
Well, tell me what you think about this. To me, it sounds like he's on his cell phone while he's commentating. You know how when you talk to someone who's at the same time doing shit on their cell phone, whether it's, they're on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever the fuck they're doing, if they're just sitting there scrolling through, but you're talking to them and they're talking back to you, but they're not really grasping anything that you're saying to them. That's the way his commentating sounds to me. It sounds like he's sitting there and he's batting shit back and forth with the other guys, with Cole and what's the other guy's name?
Corey Graves.
And Graves. Yeah, Graves and Cole, like he's batting shit off with them, but he's got no idea what's actually going on. And he doesn't remember anything that's happened.
Showed up.
Yeah. So I thought Renee Young was fantastic in her role. Again, I watched about 35, 45 minutes. So I may not have really taken away more than anything than just her presence there. Not only would I love Coachman to be gone, but I really think that Michael Cole, I think it's time to transition Michael Cole. And I get that he's like that. Not only is he a longtime commentator, but he's the one that is in charge of the commentating teams. But maybe if he could be like that elder statesman who's only on the pay-per-views. And I've heard his voice for too many years now. And so
he's I think that he's definitely become there's a time that it's become a time that the commentary style needs to change. I mean, it happens all the time. I grew up, and I can honestly say that I loved Gorilla Monsoon. I loved listening to the Weasel. I loved listening to Vince McMahon. But all these eras ended at some point, and the era of Michael Cole still has never really it should have ended a couple of years ago, honestly.
Yeah.
But now is really that time, because Corey Graves, I like Corey Graves a ton, and he's obviously a very young voice listening to on commentary, and a big wrestling fan. And we need that to kind of become the thing again. I feel like Michael Cole he's a great heel commentator, and he's a good commentator. I mean, regardless of what people think about him, obviously he knows what he's talking about. But his voice has become overplayed, and his quotes have become overdone. So it really does feel like it's time to just you know what? Let's move away from him. Time away makes the heart grow fond.
Yeah.
I think that he would fulfill a really good spot on a pay-per-view. We don't need to hear him every week.
Yeah, and I guess that's what it is, because the things he says, his style of talking and everything would be a little... It wouldn't seem so bad if it was only once a month. But because it's so much, I don't know, it's just time to hear new, that's why I like Renee, is she just had a different voice than what I'm hearing on there already, which made it automatically more interesting, if that makes sense. I didn't get to see Dean Ambrose's return. I did see pictures of him, and he looks fantastic. He looks way better than he looked before.
He's ripped.
He looks great. Why do they hate Bobby Lashley so much?
Well, I think that it's easy to point to the fact that he became a star after WWE, and WWE has this terrible tendency to only treat their guys, in quotations, with any sort of actual relevance. There's a few exceptions, don't get me wrong. There's people like AJ Styles and things like that, where people have come through and they've been able to break through that glass ceiling. But I don't like Bobby Lashley either. To me, Bobby Lashley is I've never been a big fan of his. I always think he looks green no matter what he's doing. I hate his vertical suplex. He does not do it very well. I'm not a fan of the big overdone guys and stuff like that. And he's the exact persona of that. He's I'm not going to do a bunch of technical grabs and holds and suplexes and stuff. I'm just going to use my body weight to throw you around a little bit, and then I'm going to hit you with a big vertical suplex that I can't keep my balance on. So I don't know if it's I don't think that the wrestling part has anything to do with it, as we've seen with many other wrestlers. That matters nothing. I think it has way more to do with the fact that he's not, quote unquote, one of their guys anymore. Like,
right.
Obviously he started as one of their guys, and they wanted to push him to the moon, and it didn't work out because of his lackadaisical style and stuff. But like nowadays, they brought Bobby Lashley in purely for like the shock value, and then they're using him as a jobber just so that they can keep their guys legitimate and on top, which is a terrible way to use him, because if they want me to feel anything towards him, they need to start using him like he's an actual threat to these people, because I have nothing tied to Bobby Lashley at all.
Right. I like Bobby Lashley. No, I don't know if that's fair to say, because I don't care for him right now, but I thought that I really liked his TNA run. I find him to be a very credible person.
He is legitimately credible. Like, the guy can fight. That is absolutely for sure.
I don't get. He keeps interrupting the guitar dude, and I don't get that. That's a heel move. So I don't understand why he keeps interrupting him while he's playing the guitar and he's doing it. Just everything about Bobby, the sister thing. Me and my wife, me and Sid watched that together, and she was just looked at me like, "This is you're watching this shit. This is what you're watching." That was his feud with Sami Zayn was god awful, just so terrible in every single aspect and way. And it's like, you see Lashley. They keep trying to let him be strong in the ring at the end of each one of these segments, but he has no crowd reaction at all. I mean, they're just no, and it's not boos and it's not cheers. It's nothing. They just, the crowd does not care, So do you think Roman Reigns will be over SummerSlam? Do you think he'll be cheered?
He'll never be over. The only way they can get him over is if they have him turn heel against Dean Ambrose getting a big win. That's the only way they're going to get him over, is just with the heel heat, which I don't know why they're so afraid to pull the trigger on making Roman Reigns a heel. It's never made any sense to me. He looks like a natural heel. Like, he has a good persona of being a jackass and someone that you want to dislike, which is why we all dislike him, in my opinion. And I can't fathom another full, rotation of the swing of him just being like, "No, guys, I'm going to come in and I'm going to be the underdog." You ain't no underdog. You have weight over everybody that you're going against. You have youth. You have speed. You have everything that puts you above these other competitors, and yet still you are treated as though you're an underdog in some way. And I think that's a big fault of, it's the same thing that happened to John Cena down the road. Like, you're not the underdog anymore. It's why that CM Punk John Cena promo was so good. It's like, you are what you hate. You are the Yankees. You're not the Mets. You're the guy that wins. You're the guy who gets the girl. And that's how they treat Roman Reigns. And there's nothing underdog about the guy.
Yeah. I don't know. Hopefully it works for him. Because it definitely hasn't. To me, he just looks so cocky. He just looks like he's just like he wants to be a heel. That's almost the way it looks like to me. It almost looks like he really wants to just go out there and kind of give everyone the middle finger. They've been booing him. They already disrespect him. I think that he's a young stud. He's a perfectly fine wrestler. Everything about him. I mean, if I was him, I would want to be a heel right now, because I'd want to flip everyone off. He is definitely a deserving superstar. I think the WWE did not properly. They didn't know how to create that. His rise to stardom. They were just not prepared for it the correct way. And I think he immediately got called up, and Vince saw him and made the decision immediately. This is going to be the next guy. And instead of letting it gradually happening, he just decided for everyone. And I think that's why everyone is so against him. I think it's a lot to do with the internet and social media. And I say that because there were so many rumors circulating. Everyone keeps talking about how he's Vince's guy. He's blah, 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 blah. In reality, none of us should know any of that shit. And because the internet is the way that it is, everyone thinks they know how to fucking book a card and they know how to do everything. And so because of that, because they're reading Meltzer or they're reading this person or that, and it might not even be from Meltzer anymore. The way information travels from one person to another now, because of social media, people just dislike him just because they think that now he's part of the corporation. He's part of the McMahons. So it's easier to dislike him.
Yeah, it is, and it's so weird because there's something bigger to it than just like him being quote unquote Vince's guy. Because people like Ronda Rousey, which I don't know why this is, but like we're all behind Ronda Rousey.
Right.
Like we are all for her getting this push. We want her to see as champion. So I don't know if it's maybe us feeling like he may not be legitimate enough. Like I'm not sure what all the focus is, and maybe I want to say that the push came too strong, right? But the push has literally been from day one for Ronda Rousey, and nobody gives a shit about that. Like we all want to see that happen.
I kind of think that I think that the thing with Roman is that the fans want Roman to go heel because they've made the decision they want him to go heel. And so because Vince isn't going to turn him heel, they've decided, well, fuck you. If you're not going to turn him heel, then we're just going to boo him, no matter how good his matches are or anything else. You know, that, and also I do think that the way that they tell a story with him, they shoot themselves in the foot. Because we're about to have the fourth Lesnar Roman match main event. Who cares? They make it worse. But I think that's got a lot to do with it. The fans decided they want him to turn heel. WWE's not turning him heel, so they're saying fuck you. With Ronda, I think the biggest difference is Ronda is a person from Hollywood and from UFC who came to wrestling because she truly loves wrestling. And that's the reason why I think the quote-unquote internet wrestling scene, why they have taken to her. Because they feel like she's an outsider who has given up the outside to come into this world because of the respect she has for it. Instead of like a celebrity who's just coming in looking for a payday, or someone who needs to, like, you know, shine up their image or whatever it is to get into the public eye. She's someone who's doing it because she literally wants to do it. And so I think they're like, and trust me, there's Ronda haters out there. You know, I mean, the internet wrestling groups, if you are in enough of those, good God, it'll drive you mad. I mean, there are definitely people, detractors. But I just think that the wrestling world is just taken to the fact that she loves wrestling so much.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. There is something about like finding somebody who like is someone you look up to, or somebody you view as being like this like really cool person, and then you like find out they like wrestling, and instantly you're like, oh really?
Yeah.
You like wrestling too? I mean, it happens all the time. It happens all the time for me inside my hookah groups that I'm a part of. Like when somebody says something about wrestling, like I jump on that. I'm like, oh really? You like hookah and wrestling? We should talk more.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe that's what it is. Last question before we jump into ECW. Who's going to win, Samoa Joe or AJ Styles?
Ooh, this is a good one. I have not been keeping up with SmackDown as much as I should. I love both these guys. They put on phenomenal matches, pardon the pun. I don't think AJ needs the title anymore, though I worry what they're going to do with him after that title may come off of him. Samoa Joe is a dude that obviously doesn't have to have a title to be legitimate, but the way that they've built him and pushed him, he does need to win this title to keep him relevant, at least short term, before they can use him for like other meaningful storylines or feuds of any kind. I think they need to give him the title, and my only hope and my only fear is that what they do with him is they do like a Miz type title run where he's just like that coward. They do this a lot of times with these like really good wrestlers. They'll give them the coward-style heel championship run. You know, they did it with, like, Dolph Ziggler. They did it with Christian. They give these guys the title, but then they make them very weak in comparison to that title. Samoa Joe is a dude that needs to wear that title and be like, I am the best motherfucker in this room, and you ain't going to take this from me.
Right.
You know, he needs to be everything Brock Lesnar was, but he needs to be it every single Tuesday that he's on TV.
Right.
So I hope and I think that Samoa Joe is going to win.
Well, I agree with you. I think Samoa Joe should win. I think my biggest thing is the way that WWE books everyone is, who does either one of them go afterwards? Like, I
Yeah,
could easily,
that's the word.
yeah, I could easily see Samoa Joe, Nakamura, and AJ Styles, Cien Almas, but Cien Almas isn't really being booked very strong.
No.
And you can't let AJ lose to him because of the way that he's already been booked. So I don't know where you go from there, but I definitely like what you're saying. Samoa Joe, a big bad motherfucker who just beats everyone up, and I agree with that. Yeah, I think that's, and I don't think AJ needs the title to be over with the fans.
No, definitely not. I mean, he didn't necessarily need it at any given time. Like his wins against John Cena always cemented his place at the top of the card. But that's the one thing that sucks about like being in the know of professional wrestling, or like believing that I would book a better event than these guys, obviously, is like it would be fun to like be able to just watch the product and see AJ lose and then just like watch whatever happens to AJ. But like in the back of my mind, like, you're right. Who does it? Like AJ can't even wrestle Jeff Hardy anymore because of what they've done to Jeff Hardy recently, and that's the matchup that we want to see happen in a lot of ways. Like that's the kind of guy that we want to see these classic matches with, but they can't do that because they've screwed the pooch with Jeff Hardy, making him a toy between Randy Orton and Shinsuke. Like that makes I don't that is the biggest oddity in a lot of these things. Is the way that they'll hurt talent that could be good for other people.
Because nobody is bigger than the brand. And that's why there is so much 50-50 booking, because nobody is more popular than the brand is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's WWE you're watching. You're not necessarily... You're watching for all the superstars, you know? So we'll never see another Rock. We'll never see another Steve Austin. We'll never see another Hulk Hogan. We'll never see another John Cena. Not in the right here and now. Everything can change. I'm just saying that the immediate future, right now, WWE is what is being sold. That brand is what is being sold, and it's not any singular superstar. And so nobody is truly a top player. Everyone is exactly the same. Because I see
interesting.
Go ahead.
It would be interesting because of like what you said about like the internet has a big reason for a lot of the stuff that is being like the fact that we know the behind the scenes stuff, like how different like things would have been during the time of like Bret Hart and the New Generation, and like how people would or wouldn't get behind superstars in the same world that we live in today. Like how I'm trying to think of like some of the people, like even Kevin Nash or something, right? Like Kevin Nash versus Bret Hart would feel a lot like Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar in a lot of ways. If you were to like know these like behind the scenes things, like you knew that like, oh yeah, Bret Hart is Vince's guy and Kevin Nash is the upstart that they keep pushing even though nobody likes him. Like it's such an oddity with the way the internet works and the internet wrestling community, how we make the decisions instead of just watching it. And,
sure. And like when I was a kid, I was reading all the behind the scenes and all that stuff, on online and everything. But the biggest difference was the way that we utilize social media now compared to then. Because there was social media when I was a kid, it was different. There was forums. Where you posted in a forum and then someone could read the forum and then they could reply to that forum. Or there was the MIRC chat rooms where you could go in and you could chat with people. But, now everything is so polarizing. Everything's very polarizing now. Like, I can say I like Tommy Rogers. We're about to go into ECW. I like Tommy Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
4 people say I like Tommy Rogers too. 7 people say I hate Tommy Rogers. 9 people then start arguing with those 7 people. Now 45 people, and that's everything. Everything is polarizing. And so every single action that the WWE does is broadcast for everybody to see now. It's all out there for everyone to look at. And so every little thing is blown up by 12, 13, 14 people, and it just 15, 16, 20, 25, 45, and it just keeps going and going and going and going. And so trying to watch wrestling now, like WWE, trying to sit down and watch it, you have all these things running in your head about how you think you're supposed to feel about this guy or that guy or this match or that match, and based off of everyone else's opinions and all the things that, and then okay, well, this guy's he's going to go over this guy because Meltzer said that they're going to start a feud with this guy, and you know what I mean? And so all these things are running through your brain while you're sitting there trying to watch a match. And so it definitely takes away a little that, and there's no passion behind the writing. There's nothing is new or exciting, and so it can sometimes make it hard to just sit there and just be like, oh, I really like this match, or I'm really invested in this feud, because you're thinking about all this other crap that everyone else is talking about. Some of it's probably not even real or true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's jump in, now that we've talked about everything else. Let's jump into ECW November to Remember 1997. And you picked this, Matt. Why did you pick this event?
Honestly, there's one reason why I picked this event. I was going through the archives of looking at the different pay-per-views on the ECW on WWE Network and stuff like that. And as soon as I saw Bam Bam Bigelow versus Shane Douglas, I was like, this is the pay-per-view that I want to talk about. I love Bam Bam Bigelow. I like Shane Douglas in his prime. That guy legitimately was a great wrestler. He's a great worker, awesome as a heel. And then I didn't realize he was like a hometown boy and stuff. So the fact that he was a face in this match was absolutely fantastic. And then just looking at the rest of the card, people like Tommy Rogers, for instance. I was not exposed a ton to Tommy Rogers at the time. I didn't think of his name a ton during that time. Then seeing Sabu versus the Sandman with ladders and tables and all that kind of stuff. So this just had a little bit of everything. It had the great workers. It had the big names. And then to me, I don't watch enough Bam Bam Bigelow matches. So that was the selling point to me right there.
Yeah, well, sweet. You can never get enough Bam Bam Bigelow. He's one of the absolute.
No, never.
Yeah. No, I totally. That dude is he was so incredibly talented. It's sad that not enough people really know just how great he really was for the size of that guy. So let's jump into it. November to Remember took place November 30th, 1997 at the Golden Dome in Pennsylvania. And this was the largest gate the ECW had ever had up to this point. They did.
That was cool. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, they did 4,600 people. This is how many pay-per-views? I believe this is the third or fourth pay-per-view the ECW had ever done, because at the time they were only doing 3 a year, and then I believe 98 they did 4 or 5. So yeah, I think this is the third pay-per-view that ECW had ever done, or fourth. So let's start us out with Candido and Tommy Rogers.
I was so happy to see Chris Candido. I think he's absolutely fantastic, totally underrated. I knew very, very little about Tommy Rogers, somebody that I can kind of vaguely remember seeing matches that involved him in some way. But the name did not stick out. So to me, I was just looking at Chris Candido and then was blown away by the technical prowess of Tommy Rogers. I did love how at the start of this pay-per-view, you already get into the chants from the audience of just boring. It's this isn't boring, guys. Calm down.
Right.
You'll see somebody lose their head in a minute. Let these guys just work for a little while. They did a great singles, match as they were doing a singles match for a while. I thought there were some great spots. This is the match I think that started off with the suplex to the outside of the ring, which is just absolutely crazy when you see that kind of stuff. This match didn't need any of the big weapon shots. Obviously, that was going to happen much later in the card, but it had just enough of the extreme that you remember ECW being so great at doing. But it also had that great technical work that they also did such a great job of doing too. None of their guys that they booked were ever bad workers. You can look through the catalog of everybody that came through ECW. Nobody was a bad worker. They just had that extra flair of doing the extreme stuff that made each one of the matches just a little bit more memorable. So I thought these guys worked fantastic together. I would have rather just see the match end in a singles match. But the fact that they transitioned from a singles match to a tag team match, I thought was interesting, especially for the fact that it meant that we kind of got that first tag team match out of the way. I like tag team matches, don't get me wrong, I'm not against them, but it was, you have to have that tag team match on the card. So
Right.
this gets both of those things kind of like out of the way, kind of. And it was cool seeing Jerry Lynn pop up and Lance Storm. Like, once again, two more awesome ECW guys that this match just highlighted so well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I remember. I think I actually ordered this on pay-per-view, and Tommy Rogers was half of a tag team called the Fantastics in WCW and Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and one of them older school guys, late '80s, cut his teeth in the late '80s and wrestled in the early '90s. And right before this, Tommy Rogers was part of the WWE WWF at the time light heavyweight. I don't know if he was part of the tournament or if they were doing like these exhibition matches where they were having light heavyweight matches before they actually had a title. And I'll never forget that like he had popped up on WWF TV, and I thought, wow, that's one of those names that like I haven't heard about in the last couple of years or whatever. But I was never like really super impressed with him until he went to ECW. And when he went to ECW, man, and I'll tell you, there's more matches with Tommy Rogers that are just fucking fantastic. He is really, really good. He unfortunately, he's not with us any longer. But he is absolutely incredible. And I don't know what and some of the things that I want to talk about that in the beginning of the match, just some of the transitions that Candido and Rogers were doing where they were just in different holds, or when they'd get out of different holds, the way that Candido would move around, the way that they would smack each other's bodies and stuff, it's just so good to see those. They are both masters at these little things, very little things that the two of them that you would really do in like a fight, or in a contest. If you were in a wrestling contest, you would be trying to one up the opponent, and I thought they did such a great job at that. I don't know why they transitioned it into a tag team, to be honest. I felt like that was kind of out of nowhere. I had no idea that
it really was.
I had no idea that Jerry Lynn and Tommy Rogers were tag team partners. Because I had never seen them. I still don't think I've ever seen them in a tag team match together, except this one. Storm was part of the whole Candido triple threat. Sonny, that whole
masculinity.
Yeah, that whole thing. So I knew about that, but it did seem to just kind of happen out of nowhere. But I'm going to be honest, I loved this match. This was probably one of my favorite matches of this entire show. And to me, it screamed ECW. The chaos that was involved, yet all of the players in this were extremely good. Very, very good performers. Jerry Lynn, he had just left WCW, and I've actually talked to Jerry about this time period personally during lunch at Waffle House, actually. We talked about this time period about him when he first came into ECW, and he had just left WCW, and now in between WCW and ECW, he had gone and done 2 different tours for Michinoku Pro, and then he got called in to do the whole WWE light heavyweight stuff. He had told me he had worked and I know I had seen at least 2 matches of him on WWF TV, but I think he worked 2 or 3, maybe 4 matches. Never heard anything from Jim Ross, and kept waiting, because Ross had told him that he was going to give him a call and blah blah blah, and he kept waiting for the call, and so Paulie called him, and Paulie's like, hey, I've got these dates for you, can you come in and do it? And so Lynn just agreed because he figured, well, shit, I guess they're not going to give me a call. He went in and worked for Paul. I think he said 2 or 3 different shots. And then Jim Ross called him and said, hey, blah, blah, blah. And he said, sorry, I've already got this deal with Paul going, So Jerry was in pretty good demand at this exact moment after a lackluster Mr. JL, which even Mr. JL I thought was pretty awesome. So
I loved the fact that Joey Styles makes a call out to that. He's just like Jerry Lynn, WCW, with the imaginative name of Mr. JL. That made the entire thing just hilarious to me. And also, have to say, when we were talking about commentary, obviously earlier and stuff, there is not a better single commentary man that has ever worked or lived in this business. I could listen to Joey Styles call a 3-hour pay-per-view, which eventually, it happened and stuff. But he's the reason why it's okay to only have two people in the announcement booth, or even one person that really knows what he's talking about, because he was just fantastic the entire night. There was nothing that he did wrong, and it just made it. When you say that this match was ECW, like, some of the most memorable ECW matches are not the ones with the flaming table. They are the ones with the two best workers in the world, just doing awesome stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, my memories of ECW is not a a hardcore wrestling company. I mean, my memories of ECW was a counterculture. I mean, that was just what society was in the mid to late 90s. Everything that was mainstream was lame, and the underground was cool. And so I've never in fact I kind of I hate the idea that ECW was this nothing but hardcore wrestling company, because I felt like ECW was a company that just kind of provided a little bit of everything. They had hardcore shit. They had tits and ass. They had strong style wrestling. They had tag team wrestling. They had high flying. They had spot matches. They were a company that had a little bit of everything. And the way that they were filmed, and the buildings that they ran in, and the way that they looked, and the way that the ring looked,
the fans reacted.
That was all part of what society and culture, pop culture, was in general. The movies that were popular were independent movies. The music that was popular was gritty, independent music. That's just the way that it was. And so this wasn't a hardcore company, in my opinion, at all, because they said shit, fuck, and they showed tits. To me, yeah, that's adult, but that's just everything was adult. I mean, I grew up during this time, and everything was just adult at the time, in every aspect of entertainment. And so to me, they were a company that just, they knew how to be what everything else already was.
Now, do you know, because like my favorite moment of the match after it transitioned into the tag team match, obviously the singles match just kind of was like a no contest. Referee gets up, he's like, now it's a tag team match. It's like, cool, this is definitely ECW. But do you know if Tommy, if he created the kill switch? Did Tommy Rogers create the kill switch? Because he hits the kill switch.
I am trying to.
I was blown away when I saw that.
I want to say that I don't know if he invented it, because I believe, I can't remember who, but I believe one other person was doing that at the same time.
When he hit it and they called it the Tommy Kazi, or the Tamikaze, or whatever it was. Yeah, oh my gosh, I popped so big just by myself.
And man,
this is awesome.
He laid it. I mean, I thought Storm was dead.
Oh my god, yeah. Yeah.
But that's another thing. Hard. Yeah. Oh, I thought he was dead. I thought that was it for him. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. That's another thing that I really liked about it, though. The actual pinfall was between Candido and Rogers. Yeah, Candido pin Rogers. I liked that was the actual pinfall, because it was the two guys that started the match were the two guys that ended the match. So that was another thing that I really liked about the booking of the match. So, and like I said, that was one of my favorite matches of this show. I'll be honest, 97 is not my favorite year of ECW. I liked all years of ECW. I'm not a ECW elite or anything like that. I liked all years, but 97 was not my favorite. I would say 95 is probably my favorite year of ECW, with 96 being a second. But all years are great. So next match is Just Incredible and Mikey Ripwreck, and this was another match I really liked. It wasn't as good as the first match. There was I don't know. It just wasn't.
I guess also a lot shorter.
Yeah, you're right. It was a lot shorter, and also the with them turning the singles into the tag team match, and the way ECW does their tag matches, where it's always kind of like a Texas tornado, where everyone's just kind of it was pretty hot, So it was coming off that hot, energetic match, and this was a little bit slower. I did like the way they built both guys up by showing the weird package. Did you think that package was weird?
Yeah, it was a bizarre package that like meant nothing about like these two guys having a match with one another. Like it was just like these are two guys that are in this company and they're both gonna have a match now. Like, all right, that's cool, I guess. But like that, it shows like just how like Mikey Whipwreck, because he's so over with the crowd for being who he is and stuff, and then beating Stone Cold the way that he did back in the day, and then showing like Just Incredible hitting that awesome looking 360 tombstone to win against the what's his name, the Great Suka and stuff. It's just like this means nothing. Like this is
you have to look at it in the way of the reason why they showed Mikey beat Steve Austin is because at this time Stone Cold was in full fucking swing.
Oh yeah.
So Stone Cold is the number one guy in the world. Now then you have Just Incredible beat the Great Sasuke, and they're both underdogs. So you have two underdogs who are gaining these wins that are both going one-on-one against each other. So, but it was a very strange. There was it was just music. There wasn't any. You didn't hear any commentary. They didn't really explain.
That's a different time.
They didn't really explain what was happening.
Time for video packages.
But it was good. The match was, if the first match was a 7, I would say this match is a 5. It's middle road. It's not bad. It's not great. Yeah. But it was I liked it. I liked Just Incredible and I like Mikey Whipwreck. So I like both of them.
Yeah. Does anybody have a better wrestling name than Just Incredible? Like honestly, like there's nobody that ever did their name technique better than that. Just like this guy's incredible. He's just incredible. Like that was just how could you not be over with a name like that? Just absolutely perfect, but not cringy enough not to be good. You know what I mean?
Right. Which is funny because he had just came to ECW, and before he was in ECW, his previous name right before this was PJ13. He wrestled in
PG-13.
PJ13.
Oh, PJ.
Yes, because his real name is Peter PJ Polaco. But he went to Memphis and wrestled in USWA for about 3 weeks, and he was aligned with PG-13 in Memphis, and so his name was PJ-13. And then he then he came to ECW. But yeah, he was Aldo Montoya. He was he actually wrestled as PJ Walker was his name in WWF, and Aldo Montoya. So Just Incredible is head and shoulders better than all of those names. But he's another one where his look, his attitude, his persona, his everything was the late 90s. It was just that's what the late 90s was right there. And so what did you think of the match? I like I said, I thought it was a 5.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There's nothing special that happened. There was nothing terrible that happened. It was a cool little win for Mikey Whipwreck. Obviously, like during this time period, like wins didn't matter all that much. It was just about like watching the cool matches that was going on in front of you. So like, it's not like losing to Mikey Whipwreck hurt Just Incredible in some way. But it did help build that overness that Mikey was so good at getting for his win. Like he needed this win, even though it was the same way that he wins all his matches by. This was a cool one actually, doing the top rope whippersnapper and stuff like that. And he's a great worker. He really is. Like I agree though, like it is a 5, just because that's all it is. Like there's nothing wrong with that because it was still the scale of these numbers are almost more meaningful because all these matches are good matches.
Right. Well, the next two are not my favorites. I will not lie about that. But Whipwreck's his top rope whippersnapper, which is a fantastic finish move name. I mean that name for that is just beyond perfect. Like Just Incredible. It's beyond perfect. After that, we see a recap of that backstage promo with Al Snow, and if you notice when they transition into it, Joey Styles goes, "Wait a minute. Wait, I'm getting a message. Al Snow is in the locker room getting head?" And 16-year-old me thought that was hilarious. Just absolutely fucking hilarious. But, Snow was still in the WWE at this time. He was still Leif Cassidy. And
that's why the Job Squad thing, isn't it?
No. This is before. Job Squad started in ECW.
Okay.
But at the time, he was going crazy on WWF TV, And he kept messing with Jim Ross, and he's like walking around people would be having a match, and he'd be walking around out in the arena and talking to himself and everything like that. And so they started to use him in ECW because they had nothing for him in the WWF. And so he comes into ECW, and that's when the Head thing first starts, with him talking to Head and everything. So I thought it was a good promo. I thought it was funny. I've always thought Al Snow's this period, Al Snow was pretty funny, So
yeah, I had no idea that this is the event where that famous promo came from, because I've seen that promo hundreds of times. Like I mean, every time somebody's talking about some sort of wrestling thing and making fun of different things on the internet about Al Snow and stuff, that's the promo they point to a ton of times, where he's like smacking the lockers and everything. So it was like a really cool nostalgic blast to like see that promo happen again, like, because it was just in the perfect placement and everything. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. So the next match is the TV title match. Tazz taking on Pitbull number 2, and I would say this is during Tazz's height of his.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, he was over, so incredibly over. I hated this. Absolutely hated it.
I forgot like that Tazz was a wrestler. Like, honestly, I have, like, after so many watching him, try to become a commentator and everything that he did in TNA and stuff like that. Like, it's been a long time since I've seen Tazz look physically dominating for a short guy, and then also like wrestle as strong as he did and stuff like that. So that was the crazy thing about this match for me, was just like seeing like Tazz in wrestling shape again. Like,
right.
I forgot that he used to kind of look like this, but it is an absolute squash match that was almost not a squash match, because they wanted to try to make Pitbull number 2 look like he was something special, which they immediately, went away from about 2 minutes into the match and stuff like that. But yeah, this was the ultimate throwaway match. This is the only match on the card that was just not anything.
It didn't help anybody involved in it.
No.
It was a two.
It was purely so he could challenge Bam Bam Bigelow after, during one of the promos and stuff. It was purely just to be like, I'm big, I'm bad, I challenge you now.
Right.
Like, that's all this was.
Which I mean, that's fine. But I don't see now. The Pitbulls just recently came back to ECW. They had some drug trafficking charges. And so there was actually rumors that they were going to go to the WWF and get contracts until these trafficking situations came up. Paulie took them off of the TV, and so they're just now coming back. So I don't know if that's the reason why Tazz destroyed them. I really don't. I don't know why you would use Tazz. I don't know, or I'm sorry, the Pitbulls. I don't know why you would do this on a pay-per-view either. I don't think it helped anybody or anything, but there's probably a reason why it was done. It just was not for me. And then they had the post-match promo and everything, and they had Brackus. And do you remember Brackus? Do you know who that is? Have you ever seen that guy before?
He looks like Ken Shamrock. When I first saw him, I was like, that's not Ken Shamrock, is it? And I was like, no, it's not. But like, that dude is just crazy looking. Like, I don't know, I don't remember him like at all, but that guy looked like he was pretty damn intimidating.
So he was a German bodybuilder that he was signed to WWF at this time, and they were letting him be in ECW to kind of get a little bit of ring awareness and stuff. He was the shits. I think the only thing of note, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how many matches he actually wrestled in the WWF. I want to say maybe 2. He did the Brawl for All gimmick where he lost.
Oh, okay. He
was just the shits, and he was gone and never heard from again, and that was it.
Yeah, I did like all he did, like, speaking of like note or whatever, like all he did in this match was like stand on the side of the ring. That's all he did.
yeah, that's about all he could really do. So let's move into the 3-way tag match for the tag titles. 4-way tag match.
4-way. Yeah, this is ECW right here. This is ECW.
Hated this. This was not.
I liked it for what it was. I was so glad that the Gangsters lost first so that the music would stop playing.
So
I was getting old real fast.
I like everybody involved. I like everyone involved in this match. I like these style of matches.
Mm-hmm.
I just did not think this one was very good. I thought it was really, really sloppy. There was too many people. Too much was going on. It was just not the match. It was not the match for me. I will say that, you know, all of the guys involved are all guys that are able to do some pretty cool shit, and you know they all had their really cool spots. I think Tracy Smothers is one of the greatest dudes in the whole wide world. The man has stayed the night at my house, and so I love Tracy. Tracy is literally the craziest human I've ever met, ever. I think Cronus is one of those guys that was just, man, that dude was awesome.
Yeah.
He was one of those really awesome guys. But boy, it was a cluster.
It was, and the funny thing is it starts as a three-way dance for the majority of the match, obviously, until finally the gangsters do come out and kind of start raising havoc.
Gangstinators.
You know, bring all the weapons out. Yeah, the gangstinators. Sorry, yeah, gangstinators. Yeah. I do not like New Jack. Like, I am not a fan of his. Like, I do not care for anything that he does. Like, I do not like New Jack in any way possible and stuff. But, like, seeing all the weapons come out, like, instantly brought nostalgia for me, obviously, and Cronus is a great worker, and he just is oddly paired up with New Jack. And I don't know what was going on then. I guess his partner at the time, the other big guy that New Jack was with every once in a while, he must have been out sick for the event or something. I have no idea.
Well, no, Mustafa was taking a leave of absence at the time. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They were so they were a tag team because Saturn had just went to WCW, which left Cronus without a tag team partner, and Mustafa had left the company, and so that left New Jack without a tag team partner. I hated that tag team. I don't think Cronus I don't think he was able. New Jack could be a singles. I don't think Cronus could have been a single. He needed a tag team partner.
Yeah, I wonder.
I don't know
why Cronus couldn't, because he has like the look and he has like the work ethic, but like I don't know if people just didn't believe him or what it was. I agree, like he never got any sort of singles run of any kind, did he?
No, not at all. Not that I mean he probably had singles matches and stuff, but he never had a true run or anything. I don't know what it is, man. I've heard a lot of stories about maybe he was a little bit autistic, and so he didn't cut the best promos and stuff like that. I don't know. Unfortunately, he's another guy that's no longer with us. But I've always liked him. I think that New Jack, I'm not a big fan of New Jack's either, but at the same time, I understand the, especially in 1997, I understand the fanfare behind him. The chair swinging freaks. I love Axl Rotten. I think Axl Rotten is one of the most underrated wrestlers there ever was. I think Balls Mahoney, great wrestler. I think the Dudley Boys, look what they became. Like I said, I love Tracy Smothers. I think Little Guido was a great wrestler. I don't know why the fuck Tommy Rich was in ECW. I still have never understood. Tommy Rich and Jack Victory, both guys part of the FBI, never have I understood, or never have I got why they were in ECW, but whatever. I mean, I guess that's why they were in ECW, because it's so fucking strange.
Exactly.
It's so weird. What were some of your high points of this match? What was it about this match that you enjoyed?
I loved everything that. Well, honestly, like the whole thing started with such heat when it came to the promo by the Dudley Boys. Like the Dudley Boys did such a great job of just bringing heat at the start of these matches and stuff, using every single one of the Dudley Boy family and stuff like that. Like everybody from Big Dick Dudley to the sign guy, and then the guy that cut the promo and everything. I can't remember his name for some reason. It didn't stick with me.
Joe Gertner?
Joe Gertner. Yeah. Joe is going to hurt her Gertner. Like, that stuff was amazing and so funny, and it just made the entire rest of the match, like, good. The only time that I didn't like the match was when the Gangstinators came out and their music would not stop playing. And it was that high-pitched sound the entire time. Yeah. Until finally Cronus got eliminated. The high point for me, though, was definitely towards the end when with Axl Rotten and Balls Mahoney getting the win and the victory and everything. Like, that was the cool point, because I felt like they this match, with everything that it may have, like, not had, it did have a great finish, and it also had like a great tag team winning this championship, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is what it is, I guess. So, but you know, I love ECW, and I'm able to say that not every match is for me. You know what I mean? Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah. This was just a throwaway match, but it's exactly what it needed to be.
Right.
Then we get into a well-deserved, and I think, like, talk about, like, good storytelling matches.
Yes.
This next one, in my opinion. Like, this was obviously the era of WWF and ECW being quote-unquote friendly with each other, but also completely at each other's throats and everything, and trading off people, and then also, like, signing Rob Van Dam to be Mr. Monday Night and all that kind of stuff. So, like, seeing, like, true blue Tommy Dreamer defending the honor of ECW, and then having this turncoat of Rob Van Dam come in and say, like, I'm going to show you that you guys all suck and that WWF is the way you got to go so that you can make money and blah, blah, blah. Like, absolutely fantastic storytelling and a good match between the two as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Tommy Dreamer, I think one of his best attributes is that he is a person that knows how to tell stories. He knows how to show emotion.
Oh, yeah.
He knows how to get certain things across to the fan within a match. I've never thought Tommy Dreamer is like this incredible technical wrestler, or his matches are just blah blah blah. But I've always thought that he is a great storyteller. RVD, especially in 1997, was amazing.
Oh yeah.
He really was. He was just amazing. So this was definitely, and this, I loved the Mr. Monday Night, the whole deal. I really did. I thought that was a smart thing. I loved that Jerry Lawler coming in later, and that whole WWF ECW type of thing. What would you say would be your high point?
Oh man, there's some great moments in this. I did like the no selling of the leg cast for the most part. I loved how they have Tommy Dreamer come out in a leg cast so that he's injured and he can't perform or whatever. But like at like no real point did like the leg cast actually come into play, like other than like the first 2 minutes of it where he's knocking against it to get him off the hold or whatever. But like for the most part, it was not needed at all. I did like that Tommy Dreamer won. I thought that was pretty cool, that they really wanted to push this heel motif just so strong that, like, no matter how hard Tommy Dreamer was going to fight back, it didn't matter, right? Like, he was going to lose this match. Like, the machine or the mechanism, as you say, like, the grunge period of this era didn't matter because the big brother is the winner of it. The chair shot, like, when it comes to, like, oh my god moments, the chair shot where Rob Van Dam just falls backwards and slaps a chair against the back of Tommy Dreamer's head was just like, I didn't even know what to think about it. Like, I thought, like, how is that man still standing there?
Yeah.
This was not like, hey, let's jump through tables or jump off of huge things continuously, obviously, and stuff like that. The match, this is, the next match that we're going to talk about, I have tons of spots from that I want to call out. But, like, this is another one that just had so many solid spots. I mean, seeing RVD hit so many of his moves that, like, you're so synonymous with him, like the split-legged moonsault, the rolling thunder that he does, the backflip into the drop kick and stuff. Like, just watching him work is always a ton of fun.
And what was so cool was in 1997, that all that shit was new.
Oh, it was all new.
It was all unseen, and nobody else was doing it, and he did it so flawlessly, and it was. Yeah. I mean, it was incredible. People don't understand that. Like, it's easy to go back and you watch a Rob Van Dam match in ECW, and you think, oh, what's the big deal? I've seen him do this, but at the time, when you were watching it, when you were like, if you were me, and ordered this on pay-per-view, you're sitting there thinking like, oh, you're seeing this, you're like, whoa, this is amazing. This is what I came to see. I only get to see this so often, only when they're on pay-per-view, or only when I get a tape from them, or whatever. I mean, it was really intriguing and amazing. I want to talk about this next match, Matthew. So, Sandman versus Sabu. Okay.
Oh my God! Sandman just hurled a ladder at Sabu. Hurled a ladder. Oh my God!
So did you know that supposedly Sandman was on LSD during this match.
I don't doubt it.
He was
his
tripping
eyes
acid.
were completely glazed over the entire time.
Yeah, he was tripping acid on this during this match. I actually, when I posted that we were going to do this review, someone hit me up, and I meant to try and get the sound clip of it, but I didn't have time to cut and edit it. Literally right when I called you, I just got back from the gym. And so I didn't have a chance to like cut it all up or anything like that. But let me talk about the match. I got to find what this guy wrote to me about this.
This match was so ECW in so many different ways, especially with the fact that like Sandman just literally threw his body around. Like there was nothing technical or cool about like the moveset that he like displayed in any way. He just would throw his body into Sabu, or he would throw his body into a ladder. Like there's moments where he just hurls things. Like that's all he does. Like he takes a table and he just holds it and then he suplexes the table on top of Sabu. Like normal people suplex a person through a table. The Sandman suplexes a table into Sabu. Like that's the craziness that this match had. Like, and obviously like it took a long time for it to start, which was fantastic with the way Sandman just like comes out drinking beers as he normally does and everything. He just looks completely glossed over. Like he has no idea where he's at. Like you watch him and you literally think like he doesn't know what he's going to do right now. He's just here because somebody told him to show up. Like I also loved how none of the tables played nicely between these two. Like they would just set each other up on a table and the table would just break under their own weight. Like if at any time you ever told somebody like no this stuff is real, they would watch this match and be like no, that table was sawed in half. It's like no. Sandman is just inappropriately throwing his body against it instead of just like normally placing him on top of it.
So
fantastic in so many ways.
So the person who reached out to the Facebook is Dan Fraley, and he put up a summary of Sabu's 2009 U-Shoot. The subject of his rather infamous match with Sandman at November to Remember 1997 comes up, and Sabu tells the world exactly why the match was so horrible. You may not be surprised to hear that Sandman was loaded, but he was loaded on acid. He took 2 hits of acid and apparently thought Sabu was Godzilla, and throughout the match, Hack was saying, "Here, lizard, lizard, here, lizard, lizard."
Oh my gosh, I don't even doubt it. Like, oh my goodness.
So thank you, Dan Fraley. Thank you, Dan Fraley, for reaching out to me. I wanted to actually cut the U-Shoot clip up, but I didn't have time to do it. But I'm so glad, because I don't think I've ever on it. I've probably heard the U-Shoot, but I've never even like paid attention to that. But
thought about it.
Yeah, but that's hilarious, you know.
Oh my god, here, lizard, lizard. Oh my goodness. My absolute favorite moment of this match, though, is when like Sandman just grabs a ladder and just flings it he bounces off the rope just because why not? You got to get that momentum, right?
Right.
And he literally just chucks this ladder into Sabu and just nails him in the head so hard. And like it's a good thing Sabu was like paying attention, because that ladder would have just gone straight into the audience. Like there was no protection for anybody in the world. Like everybody was gonna die if like Sabu was not the one that was sober during this match. Right.
Yeah, so it was a crazy match. I have seen some really good Sabu Sandman matches. This is not what I'd call a really good one, but it was definitely wild. I mean, it like, you know, like it was not a good match. I don't think that it was a good match at all. But I do think it was fun. It was fun to watch, because it was so insane.
I like how these matches that are like not normally like the quote unquote good matches, right? I like how these are the ones that like Sabu doesn't botch very much. Like during like his really good his really good matches, there's always like 2 or 3 botches that happen inside of it. But like these matches that are like shit shows, like he hits everything like he's supposed to, and that's always like hilarious.
You know, I want to talk about that because I listen to a lot of fucking podcasts. Okay, I work 8 hours a day in my real life, in my actual legitimate real life. I work 8 hours a day, and I go to the gym for about an hour and a half to 2 hours every morning. So from 4 a.m. until 3 p.m. I basically listen to podcasts nonstop. And so I download just a lot. That way I can just listen to them just all day long, one from the next to the next to the next or whatever. And I was listening to one called Our Vantage Point, and it's one of those podcasts that's, you know, two guys talking a whole bunch, and they got all kinds of sound clips and sound bites and, you know, yada yada yada, a fast paced kind of deal. And the one guy was talking about Sandman. They were doing like, they do this thing where they do like a top 5 and then a bottom 5 of a time period. And they were putting Sabu. They were talking about Sabu and about how much he botches, which he does. I'm not gonna sit here and defend Sabu, but I will tell you, the very first time I saw Sabu was probably in 1994 when I was 13 years old, and I thought he was an absolute legitimate lunatic. I thought that he was crazy, insane, and I already knew that wrestling was a work, but I fucking believed in that dude. I thought that dude was actually just nuts. And I don't think that wrestlers shouldn't be, I don't know how to phrase this, because I think it's very important that if you're going to get in the ring, you really know your craft, and a botch is something that, you know, a quote unquote botch, that's not something you want to do in the ring. But when things aren't perfect, they look more real. When you see Sabu slip, it makes his moves more dangerous. When he's doing a triple jump moonsault and he jumps on a top rope and he slips, that dude could break his fucking neck. And so every time he's doing that, but every time that he goes for that move, you don't know if he's going to hit it or not. And so not only are you excited to see the move, excited to watch him hit the move, but excited to see if whether or not he's going to land it. And I know that it's not necessarily supposed to be like that, but I think that it adds something to who Sabu was. His unperfections, his unperfections were what helped make Sabu so special.
Yeah, I think, and going off of what you're saying right now, like a botch move, when somebody like goes for a DDT and like only one guy falls and the other guy forgets to fall and then it looks absolutely terrible, like that's more the definition of what a botch is.
Right.
But when it comes to like Sabu not hitting his move perfectly, that's just that's legitimate people doing something that is just not going right, and it's different than a botch. I get where you're coming from. I know what you're saying.
Like, I love Ricochet. Ricochet is one of my favorite guys in the world to watch, and he has been for a long time.
Too perfect.
Everything, Zack Sabre Jr. Everything that is so choreographed, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but everything is so absolutely planned out that move A to move B to move C to move D, you can tell. It looks like a choreographed movie fight scene. It doesn't look like two guys are going in there, one trying to beat the other. It just looks like everything they do, they already know they're about to do, and that does take something away from the match, you know?
Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. And if you do want to watch that, then you have things like Lucha Underground, which is perfect for it.
Yeah, because there's nothing wrong with watching those matches. I just think that there is a difference between, you know, a Ricochet and a Zack Sabre, and they're great, and everything they're doing is fantastic and fine. And that doesn't necessarily mean that Sabu versus Sandman isn't equally as good, especially because everything in life, okay, every kind of sport, every kind of entertainment, every kind of food, everything in life is completely subjective, but especially pro wrestling. Pro wrestling is totally and utterly subjective. That's why you have pockets of different types of wrestling, different types of wrestling fans, different types of wrestlers. You know, you have deathmatch wrestlers, you have technical wrestlers, you have spot fest wrestlers, you have, you know, strong style. That's the reason why there's so many different forms and styles and ways and promotions, and because it's totally subjective. There's something for everyone in professional wrestling, and I think Sabu maybe is an acquired taste in 2018, but in 1997 he was absolutely the most different pro wrestler on the planet. There was nobody like him, and he was captivating.
Yes, you could not look away from a Sabu match for anything in the world, because you had to see what he was going to do next.
Yes. All right, next up is the main event. Bam Bam Bigelow and Shane Douglas for the ECW title. Bam Bam had just won the title, 3 months earlier, maybe 2 months earlier. So I remember when Bam Bam won the title, thinking, "Oh shit, they gave Bam Bam a world title." Like, he wasn't someone that I ever really. He was one of those people you always expect to say, "Man, he really deserves a title," but never actually gets one. You know?
Yeah.
Other than maybe a tag title.
Yeah. It's one of those cases where you can't give the biggest guy in the room the title sometimes, because then how do you get it off of him?
Right.
Legitimately, I think it's part of the issue sometimes.
Right. So, what'd you think of this match?
Oh, I loved it. This was a great way to end the entire thing, because it took everything about the entire night, right? It took all the hardcore stuff, it took all the technical stuff, and it put it into one focused match, an absolute story-driven match that. I like Shane Douglas. I got no problem with the guy or anything, but like, I've always known him as a heel or as somebody that the fans boo, like, no matter what. So like, it was such an interesting like dynamic to like see him be the underdog and like see these cheers start up for him to like give him energy and stuff like that. So like, see Shane Douglas as a babyface was super interesting to me, just because like, I've never thought of him really being a lot like that. And then, but the thing is that I loved about this match was that they did the thing that makes all matches good, where they have somebody doing that upstart, doing that comeback, and then instantly get suplexed. You know, Bam Bam was dominant the entire time, so they made Shane Douglas a legitimate babyface and let him pick up the win like that. Like, this was a huge pop. The pop for the entire night was like this match at the end of it, and it made it work so well. Both guys technically flawless in a lot of ways in this matchup, especially. Both guys had such good chemistry with each other. Like, there's moments where Bam Bam has control, and he just looks at the audience like, this is the best he can do against me, and it's just like, oh my gosh, yes, this is what I love about wrestling.
Yeah, I felt. So I agree with you. I thought that it was a good match. I thought that they turned Douglas kind of perfect within the match. It was almost like that perfect old school style of booking, where you had that monster beat up on the babyface, and until that moment when Douglas was able to pull it out of his ass and come back and win. I didn't want Bam Bam to lose the title. Just because he didn't hold it long enough, you know, and to me, Bam Bam was a world champion. He was someone that could be kind of the face of a company, because he was so unique looking, and he was more than just a big man, you know. He was able to do athletic things that most guys his size couldn't do, which kind of set him in a different specter. But the way they booked the match kind of made up for everything, because it was a great moment at the end to watch Shane win and for the pop of the night and that. So and I love Shane Douglas. You know, I was very fortunate, and I got to work with Shane for about 3 years, from 2011 to 2013. And Shane's a really cool fucking guy, and he's really smart. But when I was in my teens, I thought he was really, really awesome. You know, he presented himself like a big deal, and he did.
The franchise.
Yeah, he cut scathing promos on people, and he looked great. He looked like $1 million, and I just always thought that Shane Douglas was so fucking cool. So I was a big fan of Shane's, and so, you know, good for him for that win. I wish Bigelow would have held the title longer, though. I wish he would have fought more people. I wish he would have had more competitive matches with him as a champion. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Some of the things about this match that I really liked was when, you know, obviously, like for the ECW no rules, no hold barred stuff, where they banned, you know, the triple threat from being able to come out and help Shane Douglas in this match at all, and then to see them like try to like run out and Bam Bam just tosses him into all those guys and stuff, because it was so reminiscent of what he did to Spike Dudley, right? When he threw him into the audience and stuff. So, like, see him pick this man that is, you know, twice the size of Spike Dudley and still manhandle him that way was one of those special things that like only Bam Bam could really do. And I didn't realize like how short Bam Bam had held the title or anything like that. So like that didn't really play into my mind. But like being way more of a Bam Bam fan watching this match, I wanted him to win up until like this match actually turned me. I wanted Bam Bam to win this match. But watching this match, by the end of it, I was like, yeah, I want Shane Douglas to win this match. Like this was a story match right here, and I think that's what made it just so enjoyable for me. Besides the fact both guys actually like worked, you know, today with some of the bigger guys, like I hate Braun Strowman and I don't like him because he doesn't actually work. He just throws his hands around and stuff like that. Even though the dude is very athletic, don't get me wrong, I'm sure he could do a lot more work if they kind of let him do work, but he has that big man syndrome where he just is really big, and that's what he does. Right. So Bam Bam is, you know, I as soon as this match was over, I wanted to rewatch it, but more Bam Bam matches. That was the thing. Like, and even Shane Douglas matches. I also love, as a personal thing, Shane Douglas when he always had the tassels on his boots.
Yeah.
And I always thought they were so stupid, but like now that's the only way I can see Shane Douglas in my head. So like now it works fine.
Right. I always thought they were kind of funny because it's like, how did that make sense with him being this he's a dickhead, you know? But then I kind of thought, well, wait a minute, maybe a dickhead would have tassels on his boots, so maybe it works out perfect, you know? I agree. I always like those too. I noticed them always.
I always thought that they were. That's like the old school, like coming through. And Shane Douglas was like, how do we keep my look looking like modern and like grungy, but I have like that old school flair? It's like, oh well, we could put tassels on your boots. It's like, perfect.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I agree. So I would, you know, overall, I think that this is like a, you know, I mean, I don't have a system. Like this is definitely a thumbs up. Definitely a thumbs up. It's
oh yeah.
3.5 star event. I'd say a 7 if a 1 to 10 scenario. More good than bad for sure. Even though the two matches I didn't like, I really didn't like those two matches. but I mean, they didn't take away from the overall show. You know.
I feel like you could watch this pay-per-view, ECW November, to remember, and I'm coming from somebody that, like, I used to remember all the ECW pay-per-views and all the ECW names and stuff, and, like, it's been years since I delved real deep into it or anything, but I feel like you could watch this pay-per-view and understand what ECW was about, and that's what I love about the pay-per-views from back in the day, is they made all the people that were a part of it a part of the show for the best of the company, instead of being the best for, like, this moment. Like, this, if you watch this pay-per-view, you would want to watch whatever happened next on ECW. And that's what this pay-per-view captures so well to me, is this right here. This is something that I remember loving about ECW.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look at the crowd. Look how excited everybody was. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's what we're missing that in today's wrestling in such a large way. When I watch stuff like bar wrestling in California and Southern Underground wrestling here in Nashville, and you see a crowd that is fully invested in everything they're watching, and they're there having a good time, and they're yelling and they're screaming, and they're not thinking about booking. They're not thinking about who's the owner's guy, or they're just having a really good time. And in the 90s, everybody was just so fucking into it. They were into everything that was happening, which brought out the best from the performers, you know, and the creative juices from the people that were writing, whether it was WCW, WWF, or ECW, was so intense and passionate, you know, and you felt it. Where today, everything is so clean and clear and cookie cutter, and you know, they hire writers who are not wrestling fans, and they are writing a television show, so that they have a TV writing credit to get more writing gigs at other shows or movies. And you know, it's just it's not, and don't get me wrong, I'm not about to go into a tangent of, well, back in my day, wrestling is great right now. There are so many opportunities for so many people, and there's so many things happening. Wrestling is great right now. I'm not saying that, but the difference in yesterday and today was really the emotion. Wrestling has lost a lot of emotion, and that is super unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think that a large part of that comes from the fact that the most mainstream wrestling that we have available is WWE, obviously, and it treats it like a television show, like you're saying. And part of that problem is that it doesn't give true fans, and I think I touched on this a little bit last time we talked, actually, is that it treats everybody like we're all casual fans. And the reality is that there's so many of us that love professional wrestling for the athleticism, the storytelling, the emotion that a match can actually bring out and tell a story. And you don't see that. And just like you had said before, if you watch a AJ Styles match, like, what's the fear about AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe? I've already seen this match.
Right.
Like, do I have to watch this pay-per-view to watch this match? Because I've already seen this AJ match already before. Like, there's nothing new that he's going to do. So you have to hope that, I guess, Samoa Joe brings the most new things that he can do. And that, I think that's the biggest fault with today's wrestling, is the fact that they treat everybody like we're all marks, and that nobody's an actual wrestling fan, and we only watch it for the pseudo television style of storytelling that they don't do well.
I definitely think that that's probably it. So,
are you going to be watching SummerSlam?
No, I'm actually going to be in Knoxville on Sunday with Jerry Lynn. He's going to be doing a signing for me. We're going to be at the big NGW Impact Twitch live stream. Man, I'll tell you this, Matthew. You watch Twitch, don't you? You're a game.
Yeah, occasionally.
You're a game guy.
I'm too old for Twitch, though. I do not understand Twitch. Like, I've definitely become like the old man in a lot of like the circles that I frequent and stuff, when they tell me like, you got to get on Discord and be a part of the Twitch emote battle and stuff. It's like, I have no idea what you kids are talking about. Okay, like whatever. Well, okay, let's do it.
I would highly recommend checking out the wrestling on Twitch, Matt. They've got AAA from Mexico. They've got Tommy Dreamer's company, House of Hardcore. But this Sunday there will be it's a special live stream. It's a joint promotion between Impact Wrestling and NGW that's based out of East Tennessee, which is fucking phenomenal. They are a great company. But Sammy Callahan's going to be there, and AR Fox, and this is going to be an absolute. I would recommend checking it out, because it's going to be really, really good wrestling. But I'm going to set up the Wrestletopia table and have Jerry Lynn out there signing autographs for fans.
Awesome.
I honestly, and like, I know a lot. I'm not bashing WWE. I speak candidly, and I'm a very direct person. But I'm not bashing WWE. But I honestly don't watch it. I really don't. It's not just like one of those things that people say, oh, I don't watch WWE, or I'm gonna get rid of my subscription, and then they, I'm not that way. I just really don't watch it. I try to watch every week. I literally do try to turn on Raw, but I can't make it through more than 15-20 minutes of it. I always forget about watching SmackDown. My daughter has dance on Tuesdays, and so now I'm not even home.
Like a better way to spend your Tuesday.
Yeah, so I just, and it's not even the like I said, I like AJ Styles, I like Samoa Joe. I have nothing against Roman Reigns. I just, the television show just doesn't. I don't find a lot of interest. I am more interested. This is going to sound crazy. I am 10 times more interested in listening to John Pollock and Wei Ting do the Monday Night Raw and Tuesday Night SmackDown reviews on their podcast, Post Wrestling. I am more interested in listening to them talk about it, and I'm more interested in reading what all the people are going crazy on Facebook about it, because all you got to do is go into a Facebook group and say, what'd you think of Monday Night Raw? Nothing else. and then underneath will be 1,000 people that fucking hated it and 1,000 people that fucking loved it. And so that is just way more interesting to me. It really, really is. And I will tell you though, I will watch NXT the Takeover.
Oh yeah,
I do not watch.
Good.
I don't keep up with the NXT storylines at all, but I do watch every Takeover.
Yeah, I'm far more excited to watch NXT TakeOver than I am, like, by any stretch of the imagination, SmackDown. Like, to actually see Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano again, like, I would watch them till the, it's funny, we talk about, like, Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar are going for the fourth time and we can't stand it, but, like, I can watch Ciampa and Johnny wrestle every week and be happy with it.
Right.
Adam Cole versus Ricochet, like, this entire Mustache Mountain is going to be wrestling against Undisputed Era, who is just like the coolest group in wrestling, bar the Bullet Club, which is obviously who they're aiming to be and stuff. But like at the same time, like I love NXT. The only thing I wish about NXT, is I wish Velveteen Dream was not a jobber and that he would finally get a run. That's all. That's the only thing I wish, because I love the Prince gimmick. I
agree. I think Velveteen Dream is pretty incredible. And yeah, I enjoy the takeovers a lot. I always think that every single match on a takeover is good, if not great. I think the pacing is fantastic, and which is crazy. I mean, it is, right, Matthew? It's crazy that I can love NXT takeovers, but I when those same people who are in NXT and I enjoy them in NXT, when they are on the main roster, I have no interest in them.
Because you have no interest in watching these guys go against John Cena, because John Cena is old, and there's nothing new about it. All these guys that are on this card for NXT TakeOver, like, if you are not somebody who watches wrestling regularly, these names are different. They're new. They're intriguing to you. You don't have to watch Randy Orton again. You don't. I mean, even to a lesser extent, Jeff Hardy. In a lot of ways. Like, Jeff Hardy legitimately is old, and he is taking somebody else's spot. Like, I know that's not the way it works. I understand how booking is and stuff like that. But, like, Jeff Hardy, at this point in his career, is not doing himself or the company good besides making money. So I get that he is, quote-unquote, doing good. I get that. But as a fan of professional wrestling, the matches that they have him doing, even against Shinsuke Nakamura, is not as exciting as Ciampa versus Johnny. Like, that's just reality.
And I think that's got a lot to. They just what they do on the main roster just isn't interesting. Like Bobby Roode, to me, Bobby Roode in NXT was interesting, and I know that his theme song was what got him over, but him and his personality was interesting in NXT. On SmackDown, it's very, very, very boring. They don't make him seem anything but boring. They don't do anything special with him. They have so much talent that at this point, everybody is just there. And so everybody on Raw is just at Raw. Everyone at SmackDown is just at SmackDown. And there's nothing interesting, in my opinion, going on with the characters that they have. In NXT, they make everyone seem special. And maybe it's just because NXT is just so much easier to watch because I don't watch it very often. And it seems special turning on a takeover. You know? It looks different than a WWF pay-per-view. Even though it's the same company, same thing, it looks different. It sounds different. It feels different.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best way to put it. Like, NXT is everything that WWE is not, or, Raw and SmackDown is not, and it feels like its own promotion. It's felt that way for a long time. It's sad that they don't draw according to everything that you hear and stuff like that. The actual event itself that takes place doesn't draw like it should, or they would want it to, but it doesn't need to, because that is the place for real wrestling fans to go and actually watch good professional wrestling.
Yeah.
If you want to keep it on the mainstream or national level type stuff.
Yeah. So, well, you have any hookah ringside hookah stuff going on?
We're going to be doing a review of SummerSlam and NXT the week after, or not the week after, but the Thursday after the event. So this coming up Thursday, me and Moise, my partner in crime, we're going to be doing a review of SummerSlam and of NXT TakeOver. I'm going to be finally dropping the Scott Hall Superstar Spotlight coming this Monday, which you'll be able to hear here on your 90s a guide to 90s tape trader stream. I'll be able to give you the audio for that and stuff. So that's the big things coming up for me. I'm not sure what Moise has planned as of right now. We've been a little busy because one of the things that I did these last couple of weeks was I went to a Hookah Expo in Las Vegas. And that took up quite a bit of time. It was a blast. I had a very, very fun, enjoyable time down there and stuff. But we are looking full forward in the way of Ringside Hookah and doing some fun things with the YouTube channel.
Well, sweet. So, and what's the YouTube channel address? Is it Ringside Hookah?
Yep, just Ringside Hookah. And Hookah is spelled Hookah, in case anybody is wondering.
Well, sweet. Well, I have got, man, Matthew, my schedule is so absolutely insane, dude. I can't even explain to you. I start my morning every morning I wake up at 2:45, and it feels like the days never end ever. This Friday I'll be in. Too fast. Yeah, this Friday I'll be in Franklin, Kentucky for New South Championship Wrestling. They're having a big card with Kevin Sullivan and Tokyo Monster Kahagas. And then Sunday, I'll be in Knoxville, Tennessee for NGW Impact. Then Thursday after that, next Thursday, a week from today, or no, 2 weeks from today. When is it? No, I'm trying to think. 2 weeks from today, I will the Journeyman documentary, the red carpet premiere, happens in Hermitage, Tennessee. Can't
wait to watch that. The trailers have been phenomenal. That looks like an awesome show.
It's fantastic, and we are getting things together. There'll be another premiere in Florida. We're getting things together. We're ready. If anyone's listening, send me details on location, places. We're ready to bring it all across the country. We're probably going to wait about.
I wish that I had some sort of pull in Boise or even in Twin Falls to find a place for you guys to come out here, because I would love to see that in theaters with a bunch of wrestling fans.
If you have an independent theater that screens independent movies, send me the information. I will take care of everything.
Will do.
Then the next night after that, the 31st, is Franklin, Kentucky for New South Championship Wrestling, a big show with the Rock and Roll Express. Then we move into September. I've got Rome, Georgia, Superstars of Wrestling Fan Fest with Daphne and Duke the Dumpster Drosy. I've got, there's another New South date in there. There is, the Road Warrior Animal. Road Warrior Animal will be in Franklin, Kentucky on September 28th. The next September 23rd, I'm also in Franklin, Kentucky as well.
You are busy. Man,
it's just, as many, and then I've got a real life too. I've got 4 kids, and all my kids have something going on. Each one of them has some different extracurricular activity. I've got a production company that is trying to churn out, video content as quickly as possible. So, yeah, there is always things going on, always things happening. You never know where you'll see me next.
We'll keep our eyes peeled.
Yeah. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for coming on, and everybody make sure you check out Hookah Matt and Ringside Hookah and all the great things that you do. And thank you again, man, and we'll have you back on and we'll do this again.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me. This is an absolute blast. I love to talk wrestling, and who better to do it with than my own real-life brother.
Yeah. Big thank you to my brother Hookah Matt, and we're going to have him on again real soon. I think next time I want to do a review of my event, Showdown for Special Needs. But we will see what we come up with. Again, everybody just keep in mind, go to WrestleTopiaTV.pivotshare.com, check out the very best in independent professional wrestling, and look me up on all your social media, Wrestletopia. Come and find me. Hit the like button, hit the follow button,
interact. Shoot me a line. Let me know what you think we need to do, what you want to hear on the podcast. And if you got a town, a place, building, a theater to show Journeyman, the wrestling documentary, hit me up about that as well. So to all the tape traders out there, always remember tape trading in the 90s was fucking awesome.
What's that? I can't say. Are you? Al Snow is in the locker room getting head?
Just great. Did you see that? Huh? Was I the only one watching? Or were you paying attention for a change? Did you see that? That was just great. That was my chance, my match. Instead of being on a PPV doing a JOB, for once I could have won. But no, you had to go and tell everybody I was hurt. I dislocated my shoulder. Big deal. This is supposed to be hardcore, extreme. Everybody's out here wrestling with broken feet, setting themselves on fire, broomsticks stuffed up their butt, Tracy's mother's brain hanging out his head, and I can't wrestle. While I'm off, everybody's coming up to me going, Al, why'd you screw the head? Al, why'd you screw the head? I didn't screw the head. I didn't screw the head. Hey. No, the head screwed the head, didn't you? The head screwed the head, not me. The head screwed me too. You're just like everybody else. You want to keep me down. You said you'd be beside me, but just as soon as my back was turned, you were calling Eric Bischoff looking for a job. Without me, I'm the bread and butter of this team. I'm the reason you're over. Just like everything else and everybody else, they all come up to me, Al, get this guy over. Get this guy over. Dude, you are so... No more. From now on, I'm getting myself over. But you know what? I brought you back. I accepted you back. And then the time-honored tradition of the business, I let you get one free shot on me. Just one, but no more free shots. I took one for the boys, didn't I?
Took one for the boys.
Didn't I?
Yeah, thanks,
I took one for the boys, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
And I want you to know I'm the star here. I'm the star.
Biggest star
not
in
you.
the whole universe.
I'm a star, aren't I?
Biggest superstar.
And I'm not crazy. Not crazy at all. Not at all.
It's the 1997 November to Remember, available now from ECW Home Video, as the innovator of violence, Tommy Dreamer, takes on Mr. Monday Night Rob Van Dam. The return of Dancing Speedy Richards. The beginning of the Mikey Whipwreck Just Incredible feud. The much debated Sabu Sandman Tables and Ladders Massacre. Tazz chokes out Pitbull number 2, only to come face to face for the very first time with Mr. Right's bodyguard. The four-way dance of death. And the franchise regains the World Heavyweight title from Bam Bam Bigelow. If you missed the 1997 November to Remember, it's a regret you'll never forget.